Hi, everybody. It's Miss Cole here with the What's Your Story project. So, you have been officially invited by the Religious Studies Department to tell your story, your life story. So, by now, you will have received an invitation by email with a project page explaining the project. And also, you may well have seen the blog as well that explains a little bit more. So I want to use this video just to talk you through how you might go about doing this project. So the invitation is to tell your amazing, unique story of your life in any way you choose. So where on earth will we begin with this? Well, to start with, you've got to make a simple decision. Are you going to tell your own personal, private story of your life? Or do you want to tell the story of your family and your ancestors and thinking about how far you might go back in that journey, depending on how well you know your family tree? Once you've made this first decision, you've got to decide, am I going to tell my whole life story or my family's whole life story? Or am I just going to choose one particular episode out of that story? If you choose one particular story, you've got to think about, well, which one am I going to tell? And most importantly, why am I going to tell it? Maybe that particular story is a year that was difficult for you. Maybe you had an accident. Maybe you had an injury. Maybe you had an illness. And you want to share what that was like for you. Maybe it was the best year of your life so far when extraordinary things happened to you. If you're telling your family story, maybe you pick out some people in your family who've done amazing things, or you want to tell their story. So think about that to start with. Whole life story or one particular story, which one and why? Now, when you're telling a story, it's really important that you know it. So once you've decided how you're going to tackle this, think about who's in my story, what happens in it, where, and there may be multiple locations in your story, when, why, and how. It might be that you want to talk about your lockdown experience, for example. So, that's going to be quite a short, recent time frame. So know your story, know what you want to talk about. And remember, you are the author, you are the creator of your story here. So it's up to you what you choose to share and how you share it. You are in charge of that. And remember, if you're telling family stories, do get permission from your family to share their story and get them involved as well. So once we know what we're doing and we know what the story is, the next is the biggie. How on earth am I going to tell my story? Now, this is wide open. This is a chance for you to really showcase your skills, your abilities, or equally to try something completely new. Maybe you decide, I've wanted to make a video for years and I've never done that. So I'm going to tell my story through making a film. I'm going to learn how to film, how to edit, and how to produce. Get your family to help you. You may decide, actually, I'm going to choreograph a dance and I'm going to film that. You might decide you're going to write a book. Very ambitious, but if you've got spare time on your hands, you might make a comic story. You might make a simple PowerPoint timeline. You might make a map of all the places you've ever lived. You might decide to tell your story and adventure through food by cooking a special meal, photographing it, talking about it. Maybe you love designing clothes and jewelry. Could you design an outfit or a set of jewelry that tells your story, like a charm bracelet with different little charms on it to tell different bits of your story and your life? There are a million ways to do this, to bring out your inner poet, writer, artist, cook, scientist, technology person, however you want to tackle this. Totally up to you. That's a big one. So once you know what you're doing and you know your story, the big bit is how you're going to tell it. So other things to think about as well. What kind of story is this? Is this a story of triumph and happiness, or is it a story of struggle over troubles and issues? It is a story of somebody moving and resettling all the time and having to make new friends. Is it a story about friendship, about love, about your brothers and sisters? Is it a story about your pets and the animals that you love? So, what kind of story are you telling? Think about the theme of it. If it was a Hollywood movie, what kind of mood music would be playing in the background of the story? And then this takes us even deeper. What is the learning in this story? We all learn in life. We go through all sorts of experiences, and those experiences teach us. Life is an extraordinary teacher. We're always learning. We make mistakes, we make corrections, we learn from them, we move on. So, what is the learning in your story? That's a really deep one to think about. And I'm going to challenge you, if you dare, to go even deeper. Here's a question. If I had to turn my story into a parable, a teaching story, what would that story be? Now, many of you have been exploring StoryMaster. We've been looking at religious stories. And in religious studies, we're always looking at stories because they carry powerful meaning that goes beyond the ages and different times. A good story is relevant at any time in history. So if you had to turn your story into a teaching story, into a parable, what would that parable look like? What kind of story would it be? We've been looking at a story about generosity, for example, with the widow's mite, a Christian story. Very short, easy story. A lady goes into the temple treasury. She puts 2 coins in the pot. It's all she had in the whole world, while other people are giving loads of money. That's the story. The message is about generosity and giving. So if you've identified that your life story is about someone who lands in new situations, who makes friends easily, how on earth would you tell that in a parable, in a teaching story? So that's a really deep one. So that's a challenge for you. So let's go back. You're invited to tell your story. Are you going to tell your story, family story, the whole life story from start to right now and into the future if you want, or one particular episode? If so, which one and why? Know your story. Sketch out on paper, so all the main characters and places and so on. Then most importantly, how are you going to create a product that tells a story? Think about what kind of story it is, what you could learn, and really super deep. If you turned your story into a parable, a teaching story, like a fable or a fairy tale, what would that be? We are so excited to see what you do with this, and we can't wait to get the results and the products in. So have fun, enjoy it, get your family involved, and we'd love to see what you do. Thanks.